Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today's video is one that I'm pretty excited about. It is all about Addicting Romances. Romances that I started reading and I just was compulsively wanting to keep picking them up. I didn't want to put it down, just books that I could read in one sitting. Now I know, for a lot of romance readers, it's very common for us to read books all in one sitting, but that's typically harder for me. I'm the type of reader that kind of never really has enough free time, but also I like to take my time with books and read them and sort of analyze them and break them apart. That's just what I like to do. So I'm not the type of reader that once I start a book, I'm finished with it in 3 or 4 hours. That's just not for me. So the books that I have here on this list are books that actually did that for me, where I started it and then I finished it, or I tried to as much as possible in one sitting. And if I wasn't able to, if my schedule didn't align, I was constantly thinking about it and wanting to pick it back up again. Now, this is a recommendation video that I've kind of struggled with the concept of it, because I feel like what is addicting and so consumably readable for one person is going to be different from person to person, even within romance readers. And to illustrate this, I want to talk about a little bit about a Twitter thread that I came across not too long ago, where the question was asked, what do you find boring in a book and what do you find compelling? What is it about a book that you feel boring? If there is a boring part in the book, what is that for you? And this was asked to all readers, not just romance readers. And I was honestly really interested in the responses, and it was I just found it so interesting how different people felt and thought about things like that. So one of the common responses was fight scenes for men and women. Another one was spicy scenes. Some of it, people had to say character development, or, but it was interesting because for every time one person would say, well, fight scenes bore me, another person would say, I get bored if there aren't enough fight scenes. And that made me think about me and my youngest son. We both love anime. We love to watch it together. It's something that we do. And the interesting thing is that we always sort of disagree, not always, but oftentimes we'll disagree about the boring parts. When there's a lot of battle sequences and a lot of fight scenes, that's the time when I'm struggling to stay engaged, and I'm tempted to get on my phone and scroll because I just don't care about battle scenes. And he feels that way about quiet, indoor, close scenes, scenes that develop characters and things like that. And it's just interesting to me how different people are. But even within that, even if you are a character-driven reader or a plot-focused reader, there are still certain things that will appeal to you more than others. So this is just an interesting concept to me. I didn't mean to have such a lengthy intro, but I just wanted to say that just because I find a book addicting to read doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work that way for everyone. But this is my channel. These are my recommendations. And all of these books on here were books that I just had to continue reading as much as possible. So the first one I want to talk about is Desire in His Blood by Zoe Draven. This is a sci-fi alien romance, and I freaking loved it. This is one of my favorite books I've read this year. It was just so much fun. This is basically about a human woman who lives on this planet, and she's the eldest daughter. She's really trying to keep her family afloat because her father has a gambling problem, and he has just lost all of their money and their fortune, and they're just sinking, and she's trying so hard to keep them afloat. So in comes our hero, who is an alien, sort of reminiscent of a vampire meets a gargoyle. That's how I picture him, as you can see from the cover. And he offers a marriage offer to her, and by doing that, all of their financial issues will be taken care of. And all of their troubles will be gone, basically. And so she's very hesitant. She's not entirely trusting, but she also feels I don't really know what else to do. This looks like it could be a good option. So she agrees. So they enter into this marriage of convenience, basically. And they very much are enemies in the beginning. They don't like one another. He has a big grudge against her father. He wants revenge. And that's why he agreed, or he offered to marry her in the first place. And she doesn't know about that. And so she's trying to at least be friends with him, and he is continuously pushing her away while at the same time being drawn to her. And I think the thing that makes this so readable for me is how the author handles that so well. For every moment where he is gruff or grumpy or even kind of rude with her, you get to see into his head, into his thought process, and even in small interactions between the two of them, where you can see that he doesn't actually feel that way. He's kind of softening towards her, and he actually has stronger feelings for her than he's letting on. So I just thought this book was incredible. I thought it was so fun, and if you're looking for just a really good time. Pick this up, but I think this would also work really good as like a palate cleanser in between genres, especially if you don't read this typically, which like I usually don't gravitate towards sci-fi romances or alien romances. It's not that I don't like them, it's just not anything that I really like get a craving for, and I think, you know what I want is an alien romance. So this was just fantastic. I loved it. Okay, the next book is Flawless by Elsie Silver. So this was the first book that I read by Elsie Silver, and this is basically about a bull rider hero who has recently come into a little bit of scandal with some of his sponsors and his fans. His good name has kind of got tarnished for some comments that he made about milk, of all things. So in comes basically his PR manager's daughter to save the day and try to work on repairing his reputation. So they're working really closely together, and that, of course, is the romance. She has had a crush on him for years, like had a poster of him in her room, and, you know, she was totally crushing on him, so she's trying to be professional. And they fall in love, obviously. But the thing that, again, makes this so compulsively readable to me is that she does a really great job of developing the characters and making them multidimensional while also giving them a character arc and a journey to go on. And I think that that's balanced really well with the romance, how it develops gradually, but the tension in this book, the sexual tension between these two was so good. And that really was the thing that kept me reading, because I was like, just kiss already, you know? It was great. It was a really good time. Okay, and the next book that I want to talk about is The Beast of Beswick by Emily Howard. So this is a few years old, this historical romance. I feel like a lot of historical romance readers have read it. But again, if you don't read historical romance, I'm going to recommend this book to you because I think that it would translate really well if you read contemporary a lot. It is newer, so it does read a little bit contemporary in the way that it's paced and how the couple is brought together. This is also like a Beauty and the Beast retelling with a damaged hero, and it's just so good. The heroine is trying to save her younger sister and their family from financial ruin, and so she goes to try and make a marriage with this very damaged duke, and nobody wants to marry him. He's supposed to be dangerous, and she's like, I will marry you if you help my family. And it's just fantastic. This is one of my favorite historicals. It's just a ton of fun. It is just very fast-paced, but also has great character development and great romantic development, and it's just very fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, so this book I think could work for some people, but I think it also could not. But for me, this book was addicting, and I just could not look away from it, and it is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This is a contemporary novel. I hesitate to call it a romance because while it is focused on the romance, I don't necessarily feel like that it fits nicely into the romance genre because, you know, they have cliffhangers. There's no happily ever after in this book. You have several books to go to get their story, and I actually don't even feel like I haven't read the second part to this. I've only read this one in Daisy Hate, so I don't believe that they actually end up together happily at this point. So it's not I don't believe it's technically a romance, even though it is heavily romantic driven. What it is, however, is rich people drama, and a lot of it, and just like the kind of drama that you just like cannot look away from. Like, this is soapy to the extreme. It has that addictive page-turning quality of like a soap opera or some type of like drama that you just are so invested in. You have to know what's happening, even though you know that these characters are kind of terrible and they're doing terrible things, and like there is no morality here among the characters. They're constantly like betraying and backstabbing each other, and it's just like, it's dramatic, and I don't know that it's romantic for me. I have a whole video talking about this book. My point is, this is rich people drama about a couple, basically, in this book who have sort of a soulmate type of connection, but they always end up self-destructing and making choices that pull them apart. And one of the big components that breaks them up is cheating, and it just keeps happening. And so, like, again, this is the type of book that I like started. I didn't know what to think about it, and I just was like, I could not look away. It was like a train wreck. I had to know what was going to happen to these characters. So if you want an addicting experience, give it a try. Okay, the next book that I have to recommend is Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. So this is a very emotional, heartbreaking book, but it is also balanced really well with great banter, with some really fun rom-com-y type of moments, great swoon as well. And it's just overall a really good time. So I think that this book hits emotionally. It's a journey. It takes, you know, some time for this couple to get there happily ever after. the beginning part reads more like a really well done rom-com, and then you start to get into the heavier emotional aspects of it. But the banter in this book is so good. The characters are so relatable. Their romance develops beautifully. And they give you, like, she gives you just enough of their romance in this book to keep you, like, just tiny bit satisfied while always wanting more. And so you're kind of like, you get that gratification of their romance, but then you're also like, but it's not quite as much as I want. And she sort of keeps the balance of that really well throughout the whole book. So the tension in here is done really well. And I just enjoyed this very much. It's basically about a heroine who is, you know, a rich, successful businesswoman, but she kind of keeps messing up, and she keeps going out and getting drunk and having one-night stands, and that inevitably begins to affect her work life, where she ends up showing up late and isn't giving her job all of her focus that she should be. So her boss is like, look, we gotta change something. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna go to Hawaii. I'm gonna take a little time for myself and get my head right and see if I can come back and everything will be good again. And so she does that, and she goes hiking on Hawaii, and that is where she has this accident where she hurts her ankle, and the paramedics have to come and, like, helicopter out, and it's one of the paramedics that she ends up falling for, and that is the basic plot, is them meeting, feeling drawn to one another, feeling this connection that is undeniable, and at the same time sort of fighting that because of past issues that they've had, but also because it doesn't seem like it's going to work out because he's in Hawaii and she's, you know, back on the mainland being a successful businesswoman. And it's just absolutely beautiful, and I really love this book. Okay, so the last book that I have to recommend is A Scoundrel of Her Own by Stacey Reid. Now, for me personally, Stacey Reid is an author that I have not been disappointed with yet. I've read quite a few of her books in her backlist series and in her newer books that are coming out, and every single time that I pick up a Stacey Reid book, I have that feeling of, I don't want to put this down. I'm so captivated by these characters, by this romance. I just need to read more. I need to know what's going to happen. I don't want to leave these characters. So this is one of my favorite books of hers. It begins as childhood friends to lovers, basically, but the way that they meet in childhood is just, like, so sweet and unique, where she's a little girl, but she's going to be a lady, and he is definitely from the wrong side of the tracks. He's not a gentleman at all, and she's in a carriage accident, and he jumps into the river and saves her, and then they end up staying in this little cottage where he can, like, try and nurse her back to health, but then they can try and survive, and it's just absolutely adorable. And I felt like they were very age-appropriate characters, and I felt like they had just the right amount of, like, this tender feeling of, well, you're my friend, but maybe one day we can get married. Like, it's just so cute, right? And then they grow up a little bit, and obviously they end up separating. When they are able to meet back together again, the heroine realizes that the hero has spent his entire life becoming a made man so that he can be worthy of her. And, like, this is the type of hero that, like, you just can't get enough of. He worships her. He literally built a fortune so he could have her, and it's just so good. I love this book so much, and if you haven't read it yet, you definitely need to. Alright, my friends, there you have it. Those are my recommendations for addicting romances that I think are unputdownable. If you made it this far into the video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and go ahead and leave me a blue heart if you have one. Thanks, my friends. I'll see you in my next video.